If you want to lead others, you first need to learn how to lead yourself. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they cannot control their thoughts, emotions, and daily actions. This audiobook will show you how to take full responsibility for your mind, your habits, and your decisions in a simple and practical way. You will learn how to build daily discipline, stay focused under pressure, remove self-destructive habits, and make clear decisions even when life feels uncertain. Every chapter is designed to give you real tools you can use immediately in your daily life. Do not skip this. Stay until the end because each lesson builds on the last and changes how you think about leadership and personal growth. If you are ready to take control of your life from today, subscribe now and continue listening. Chapter_1. Master your thoughts before directing anyone else's actions. The quality of your leadership will never rise above the quality of your thinking. Many people want influence. They want respect. They want others to listen to them, follow their vision, and trust their decisions. Yet they overlook the most important responsibility of all. Before leading another person, they must learn how to lead themselves. Everything begins in the mind. Every action you take is first a thought. Every habit starts as a decision. Every achievement is created through repeated choices. If your thoughts are scattered, your actions will be scattered. If your thinking is weak, your decisions will be weak. If your mind constantly works against you, no position, title, or authority can make you an effective leader. Many people spend years trying to control external circumstances while ignoring the internal world that drives everything they do. They focus on changing employees, family members, co-workers, friends, or business partners. They become frustrated when people fail to meet expectations. They become angry when plans do not unfold exactly as intended. What they often fail to recognize is that leadership starts long before anyone else enters the picture. The first person you must influence is yourself. This sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest challenges in life. Most people are not fully aware of their own thoughts. They move through their days reacting automatically. A small inconvenience ruins their mood. A criticism destroys their confidence. An unexpected problem steals their focus. Their emotions pull them in different directions, and they spend their energy responding to circumstances rather than directing themselves intentionally. Self-leadership begins when you stop living on automatic and start paying attention to what is happening inside your mind. Think about a typical day. You wake up and immediately begin thinking. Some thoughts encourage you, others create doubt. Some thoughts push you toward action. Others invite procrastination. Some thoughts remind you of your goals. Others distract you with fear, worry, or comparison. Most people accept every thought as truth. That is where many problems begin. A thought is not automatically a fact. A thought is simply a mental event. It appears, it captures your attention, then it influences your emotions and behavior if you allow it. Someone might think they are not capable enough to pursue a new opportunity. Another person might think they will fail before they even start. Someone else might assume they are not respected because one conversation did not go well. These thoughts can feel real. They can create powerful emotions. Yet feelings alone do not determine reality. Strong leaders learn to examine their thinking rather than blindly obey it. When a negative thought appears, they pause. They ask questions. Is this true? Is this useful? Is this helping me move forward? Is there evidence to support this belief? This simple habit creates tremendous power. The ability to observe your thoughts without immediately reacting to them is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. It creates space between stimulus and response. Instead of being controlled by emotions, you begin making conscious choices. Consider a manager facing a difficult project. Deadlines are approaching, pressure is increasing, team members are making mistakes. One leader allows frustration to dominate their thinking. They become impatient, They communicate poorly. They blame others. Their stress spreads throughout the entire group. Another leader faces the same situation but manages their thoughts differently. They recognize their frustration without becoming controlled by it. They focus on solutions rather than complaints. They remain calm under pressure. Their attitude influences everyone around them. The circumstances are similar. The difference is internal leadership. Your thoughts create your behavior, and your behavior shapes the environment around you. This is why mastering your mind is not a selfish activity. It directly affects every person you interact with. Your family experiences it. Your co-workers experience it. Your friends experience it. The people you lead experience it. A person who lacks control over their thoughts often creates instability. One day they are motivated. The next day they are discouraged. One moment they are focused. The next moment they are distracted. Others never know what version of that person they will encounter. Trust becomes difficult under those conditions. People naturally trust consistency. They trust individuals who remain grounded regardless of circumstances. They trust people whose actions reflect stability rather than emotional unpredictability. Mental discipline helps create that consistency. Mental discipline does not mean suppressing emotions. It does not mean pretending everything is fine when challenges arise. It means choosing thoughtful responses instead of impulsive reactions. There is a significant difference. Everyone experiences fear. Everyone experiences doubt. Everyone encounters disappointment. Leadership is not the absence of these experiences. Leadership is the ability to navigate them wisely. One useful practice is becoming aware of recurring thought patterns. Many people repeat the same internal conversations for years. They criticize themselves constantly. They focus on past mistakes. They assume the worst possible outcomes. They replay negative experiences repeatedly. Over time, these patterns become deeply familiar. They feel normal. Yet normal does not always mean healthy. Pay attention to the thoughts that appear most often. Do they encourage growth or limit it? Do they create confidence or insecurity? Do they support action or create hesitation? Your answers reveal the current condition of your mental leadership. A person who continually tells themselves they are incapable will eventually behave as though they are incapable. A person who constantly expects failure will often avoid opportunities that could improve their life. Repeated thoughts gradually influence identity. This process happens whether you notice it or not. That is why intentional thinking matters. Intentional thinking means choosing mental inputs carefully. It means protecting your attention from unnecessary negativity. It means spending time with ideas that strengthen character rather than weaken it. The mind is constantly absorbing information. Conversations influence it. Media influences it. Social environments influence it. Daily experiences influence it. If you fill your mind with distraction, negativity, and constant noise, maintaining clarity becomes difficult. Many people underestimate the impact of what they repeatedly consume. Hours of complaints create a complaining mindset. Hours of excuses create an excuse-making mindset. Hours of meaningful learning create a learning mindset. Your thoughts are shaped by what enters your attention repeatedly. This is why disciplined leaders guard their mental environment. They understand that focus is valuable. They do not allow every opinion, fear, trend, or distraction to occupy space in their minds. They choose carefully. Another important aspect of mastering your thoughts is accepting responsibility. Responsibility is not about blame. It is about ownership. Many people spend years blaming circumstances for their current situation. They blame their upbringing. They blame difficult co-workers. They blame poor timing. They blame unfair treatment. Some of these challenges may be completely real. Yet, leadership begins when you ask a different question. What can I control right now? This question shifts attention away from helplessness and toward action. You may not control every circumstance. You may not control every outcome. You may not control other people's choices, but you can control your response. That response often determines what happens next. A setback can become an excuse to quit, or an opportunity to grow stronger. A mistake can become a source of shame or a lesson that improves future performance. A criticism can become a personal attack or valuable feedback. The event itself matters, but your interpretation matters even more. This principle becomes especially important during difficult seasons. Anyone can appear confident when life is easy. Anyone can remain positive when everything goes according to plan. True self-leadership reveals itself when circumstances become challenging. Pressure exposes the quality of your thinking. When obstacles appear, do you panic or stay composed? When progress slows, do you quit or continue? When uncertainty arrives, do you become overwhelmed or remain focused? Your answers reveal how effectively you lead yourself. Strong leadership is built long before major challenges appear. It is built through daily mental habits. It is built through consistent self-awareness. It is built through deliberate thinking. It is built through repeated choices made when nobody is watching. Every day offers opportunities to strengthen this skill. You can pause before reacting. You can challenge limiting beliefs. You can replace excuses with responsibility. You can direct attention towards solutions. You can choose discipline over impulse. You can decide what thoughts deserve your energy. These small decisions accumulate over time. Eventually, they shape character. Character shapes leadership, and leadership shapes impact. Before anyone trusts your direction, they will observe your behavior. Before they believe your words, they will evaluate your actions. Before they follow your vision, they will look for evidence that you can lead yourself. The foundation of every great leader is not authority. It is self-mastery. Master your thoughts first. Learn to guide your mind with intention rather than allowing circumstances to control it. Develop the discipline to think clearly under pressure. Build the habit of responding wisely instead of reacting emotionally. The person who gains authority over their own mind gains the ability to influence every area of life more effectively. That journey begins with a simple decision. Lead yourself first. Chapter _2. Build daily discipline through consistent personal accountability habits. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many people think it is something reserved for highly motivated individuals. They assume disciplined people wake up every morning feeling energized, focused, and ready to perform at their best. They imagine that consistency comes naturally to successful people. The reality is very different. Discipline is not about feeling ready. It is about doing what needs to be done, whether you feel ready or not. Every person experiences days when motivation is low. Everyone faces moments when comfort looks more attractive than effort. Everyone encounters internal resistance. The difference between those who grow and those who remain stuck is not talent, intelligence, or luck. The difference is their ability to act despite that resistance. Leadership begins with personal accountability because nobody can consistently lead others while constantly making excuses for themselves. Many people say they want better results, they want stronger relationships, they want better health, they want financial growth, they want greater influence. Yet their daily actions tell a different story. Goals are important, but habits reveal the truth. What you repeatedly do matters far more than what you occasionally intend to do. A person may talk about becoming healthier, but if they consistently ignore exercise and nutrition, their actions are creating a different outcome. Someone may claim they want professional growth, But if they avoid learning new skills and taking responsibility, their behavior points in another direction. Personal accountability begins when you stop measuring yourself by your intentions and start measuring yourself by your actions. This can be uncomfortable. Many people enjoy the idea of success more than the process required to achieve it. They become attached to future possibilities while avoiding present responsibilities. They spend time planning, discussing, and dreaming, but little time executing. Discipline closes the gap between intention and action. It transforms wishes into behaviors. It transforms ideas into results. It transforms potential into reality. One reason accountability feels difficult is because it removes convenient excuses. When something goes wrong, it is often easier to point toward external circumstances than to examine personal choices. A missed deadline becomes someone else's fault. Poor performance becomes bad luck. Lack of progress becomes a problem caused by conditions outside our control. Sometimes external factors genuinely create challenges. Life is not always fair. Unexpected obstacles appear. Circumstances can delay progress. Yet accountable people ask a different question. What part of this situation belongs to me? This question creates growth because it focuses attention on personal responsibility rather than external blame. A leader who consistently asks this question becomes stronger over time. They learn faster. They improve faster. They adapt faster. Most importantly, they maintain control over their own development. Accountability is powerful because it keeps your focus on areas where action is possible. Consider two individuals facing the same setback. Both fail to achieve an important goal. The first person spends weeks complaining about circumstances. They explain why success was impossible. They defend their decisions and protect their ego. The second person studies what happened. They identify mistakes. They look for lessons. They adjust their approach and move forward. One remains trapped in frustration. The other gains wisdom. The difference is accountability. Daily discipline grows through small commitments kept consistently. Many people believe dramatic transformation requires dramatic action. They wait for a perfect moment when they will completely change their lives. That moment rarely arrives. Real change usually begins with ordinary decisions repeated every day. Getting out of bed when the alarm sounds. Completing a task before entertainment. Following through on promises. Preparing instead of procrastinating. Finishing responsibilities before seeking rewards. These actions may appear small, but they shape identity. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, you strengthen self-trust. Every time you break a commitment without a valid reason, you weaken it. This matters because leadership depends heavily on trust. If you cannot trust yourself to follow through consistently, others will eventually notice the same pattern. People often focus on earning trust from others while neglecting trust within themselves. Self-trust develops through evidence. You build it when your actions repeatedly align with your words. When you say you will exercise and then exercise, trust grows. When you say you will study and then study, trust grows. When you say you will finish a project and then complete it, trust grows. Over time, these repeated actions create confidence that is based on reality rather than wishful thinking. This kind of confidence is powerful because it is earned. It is not built through positive thinking alone. It is built through consistent behavior. Another important aspect of discipline is understanding the relationship between freedom and responsibility. Many people view discipline as restriction. They see it as something that limits enjoyment. They believe accountability removes freedom. The opposite is often true. Discipline creates options. Financial discipline creates greater financial freedom. Health discipline creates greater physical freedom. Time discipline creates greater flexibility. Emotional discipline creates greater stability. When people avoid responsibility, they often create future limitations. Short-term comfort frequently produces long-term consequences. Consistent effort frequently produces long-term opportunities. This principle appears in nearly every area of life. The student who studies regularly experiences less panic before exams. The professional who prepares consistently performs better under pressure. The leader who develops strong habits handles challenges more effectively. The parent who remains accountable builds stronger relationships with their children. Discipline may require effort today, but it often reduces difficulty tomorrow. One of the most valuable habits a leader can develop is conducting honest personal reviews. Many people evaluate others constantly while rarely evaluating themselves. They notice weaknesses in co-workers. They notice mistakes in friends. They notice shortcomings in organizations. Yet they avoid examining their own behavior with the same level of honesty. Growth requires self-observation. At the end of a day, ask yourself difficult questions. Did I honor my commitments? Did I act according to my values? Did I manage my time wisely? Did I take responsibility for my actions? Did I make progress where progress mattered? These questions create awareness. Awareness creates improvement. Improvement creates momentum. Momentum creates transformation. The goal is not perfection. Perfection is unrealistic. The goal is consistent progress. Even highly disciplined individuals make mistakes. They miss opportunities. They occasionally fall short of expectations. What separates them from others is their response. They do not spend excessive energy defending poor choices. They acknowledge mistakes quickly. They correct course quickly. They return to productive habits quickly. This ability prevents small failures from becoming permanent patterns. Many people abandon discipline because they believe one mistake ruins everything. They miss a workout and quit exercising altogether. They delay one important task and stop pursuing the goal entirely. Strong leaders think differently. They understand that one poor decision does not define them. What matters most is returning to the standard they established. Consistency is not about never failing. Consistency is about refusing to stay off course. Every day provides another opportunity to practice accountability. Every decision strengthens or weakens discipline. Every action contributes to the person you are becoming. The habits you repeat today are shaping your future leadership capacity. When people look at effective leaders, they often notice confidence, influence, and achievement. What they do not always see are the countless moments of personal accountability that made those qualities possible. They do not see the promises kept when nobody was watching. They do not see the difficult choices made quietly. They do not see the routines followed consistently over months and years. Leadership is rarely built through dramatic moments alone. It is built through daily discipline. It is built through personal responsibility. It is built through accountability that remains steady even when excuses would be easier. Every commitment you honor strengthens your character. Every responsibility you accept strengthens your leadership. Every disciplined action strengthens your ability to direct your own life. The people who lead others most effectively are often the people who have spent years learning to lead themselves through consistent accountability. Their success is not an accident. It is the result of thousands of choices made one day at a time. And every one of those choices began with a simple decision to take responsibility for their own actions and follow through no matter how they felt. Chapter_3. Strengthen emotional control during pressure and uncertainty. Pressure reveals what comfort hides. When everything is going well, emotional control seems easy. People are polite when they are comfortable. They are patient when nothing threatens their plans. They remain calm when outcomes are predictable. The true test arrives when certainty disappears. A project fails unexpectedly. A trusted person disappoints you. Financial pressure increases. A goal that seemed close suddenly moves further away. Plans change. Opportunities disappear. problems arrive without warning. These moments expose the habits that exist beneath the surface. Many people believe leadership is primarily about making decisions. In reality, leadership is often about managing emotions before making decisions. A person who cannot control their emotions during pressure will struggle to make clear judgments when clarity matters most. This is why emotional control is not weakness. It is strength. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the ability to prevent feelings from controlling your actions. Every human being experiences emotional reactions. Fear appears, frustration appears, anger appears, disappointment appears, anxiety appears. These reactions are natural. The problem begins when emotions become the decision makers. Consider what happens when someone sends an upsetting message. An emotional reaction appears immediately. The heart rate increases, tension rises, thoughts become intense. At that moment, there are two possible paths. The first path is reaction. The person responds instantly. They speak without thinking. They send words they later regret. They allow temporary emotions to create lasting consequences. The second path is response. The person pauses. They allow emotions to settle. They examine the situation carefully. They choose words deliberately. They act according to values rather than impulses. The difference between these paths may only be a few minutes, but the outcomes can be dramatically different. Strong leaders develop the habit of creating space between emotion and action. That space becomes one of their greatest advantages. When uncertainty enters your life, the mind naturally seeks certainty. It wants answers. It wants guarantees. It wants reassurance that everything will work out exactly as planned. Life rarely offers such guarantees. This reality causes many people to become overwhelmed. They spend enormous amounts of energy worrying about events that have not happened. They replay worst-case scenarios repeatedly. They attempt to predict every possible problem. Ironically, this habit often creates more stress than the actual challenges themselves. Uncertainty is unavoidable. The future will always contain unknowns. No leader can eliminate uncertainty. What they can do is develop confidence in their ability to handle whatever arrives. There is a significant difference. Confidence is not believing nothing will go wrong. Confidence is believing you can respond effectively when something does go wrong. This mindset changes everything. Instead of demanding certainty, you begin building capability. Instead of obsessing over outcomes, you focus on preparation. Instead of fearing every challenge, you strengthen your ability to face challenges. This shift creates emotional stability. One of the most valuable questions you can ask during stressful situations is simple. What is actually happening right now? Notice the wording. Not what might happen tomorrow. Not what could happen next month. Not what happened years ago. Right now. Stress often grows because the mind leaves the present moment. It jumps into future possibilities and creates scenarios that may never occur. Returning attention to the present helps restore perspective. You may have a difficult problem. You may have an uncertain future. You may have important decisions ahead. But in this moment, what action can you take? What step is available right now? What responsibility belongs to you today? Focusing on immediate actions reduces emotional chaos. It brings attention back to areas where progress is possible. Another aspect of emotional control involves understanding the temporary nature of feelings. Many people treat emotions as permanent realities. They feel discouraged and assume they will always feel discouraged. They feel anxious and assume anxiety defines their future. They feel defeated and assume defeat is final. Yet emotions constantly change. Think about difficult moments you experienced years ago. At the time they may have felt overwhelming. You may have believed the situation would never improve. Eventually circumstances changed. Your perspective changed. Your emotions changed. Life moved forward. Remembering this truth can be incredibly helpful during challenging seasons. Temporary emotions should not dictate permanent decisions. A person who quits during a moment of frustration may regret it later. A person who abandons a goal during temporary discouragement may lose an opportunity that was still possible. A person who damages a relationship during a moment of anger may create consequences that last for years. Wise leaders understand the importance of waiting for emotional intensity to decrease before making major decisions. Calm minds make better choices. This principle becomes especially important during conflict. Conflict is inevitable wherever people work together. Different personalities exist. Different opinions exist. Different priorities exist. Disagreements will happen. The question is not whether conflict will occur. The question is how you will respond when it does. Many conflicts become worse because people focus entirely on being right. They stop listening. They stop seeking understanding. They become focused on winning rather than solving. Emotional control allows you to approach conflict differently. Instead of asking how to defeat the other person, you ask how to improve the situation. Instead of defending every position, you become willing to learn. Instead of escalating tension, you look for solutions. This approach strengthens trust. People naturally respect individuals who remain composed under pressure, not because those individuals never feel emotions, but because they handle emotions responsibly. Another powerful practice is learning to separate events from interpretations. An event occurs, then the mind creates a story about the event. Someone ignores your message. The event is simple. The story might become far more dramatic. They do not respect me. They are angry with me. Something is wrong. The relationship is damaged. Hours later, you discover they were simply busy. The suffering came from the interpretation rather than the event itself. This happens constantly. The mind fills gaps with assumptions. Emotional control requires examining those assumptions carefully. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every fear deserves attention. Not every concern deserves energy. Part of self-leadership involves deciding which mental stories deserve your focus. This skill becomes more valuable as responsibilities increase. People who lead families face pressure. People who lead teams face pressure. People who run businesses face pressure. People who pursue meaningful goals face pressure. Pressure is not evidence that something is wrong. Often it is evidence that something important is happening. Growth creates pressure. Responsibility creates pressure. Progress creates pressure. The goal is not eliminating pressure. The goal is becoming stronger within it. Emotional resilience develops much like physical strength. It grows through repeated practice. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen patience. Every setback becomes an opportunity to strengthen perspective. Every uncertainty becomes an opportunity to strengthen trust in your own ability to adapt. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. Situations that once overwhelmed you become manageable. Problems that once created panic become solvable. Uncertainty that once produced fear becomes something you can navigate with confidence. Not because life becomes easier, because you become stronger. The most effective leaders are rarely the loudest people in the room. They are often the calmest. When others panic, they remain focused. When others react, they remain thoughtful. When others become consumed by uncertainty, they remain grounded in purpose. That stability becomes a source of strength for everyone around them. People naturally look for steady leadership during difficult times. They look for individuals who can think clearly when emotions run high. They look for people whose decisions are guided by wisdom rather than impulse. That kind of leadership begins internally. It begins with mastering your own emotional responses. It begins with learning that feelings are valuable signals but unreliable commanders. It begins with understanding that uncertainty is part of life, and composure is a choice. Every time you remain calm under pressure, you strengthen this ability. Every time you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, you strengthen this ability. Every time you choose clarity over panic, you strengthen this ability. And with every challenge you overcome, you become more capable of leading both yourself and others through whatever comes next. Chapter_4. Develop clear priorities that guide confident decisions. One of the greatest reasons people struggle with decision-making is not a lack of intelligence. It is not a lack of information. It is not even a lack of opportunity. The real problem is often a lack of clear priorities. When everything feels important, nothing receives the attention it deserves. Many people move through life reacting to whatever demands their attention first. They answer every request immediately. They chase every opportunity. They attempt to solve every problem at once. They fill their schedules with activity and then wonder why meaningful progress feels so difficult. Being busy is not the same as being effective. A person can spend an entire day working hard and still make little progress toward what truly matters. Leadership requires the ability to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Urgent tasks demand immediate attention. Important tasks shape long-term outcomes. The challenge is that urgent tasks often feel more compelling. A message appears, a notification arrives, a minor problem emerges, someone requests assistance. These things pull attention away from deeper priorities. Without clear direction, people spend their lives responding instead of leading. Strong leaders understand that attention is one of the most valuable resources they possess. Time is limited, energy is limited, focus is limited. Because these resources are limited, they must be invested wisely. Every yes automatically creates a no. When you commit to one activity, you give up the opportunity to use that same time elsewhere. This reality makes priorities essential. The ability to choose what matters most is one of the defining characteristics of effective leadership. Many people avoid setting clear priorities because doing so requires difficult choices. Choosing one path often means declining another. Pursuing one goal may require sacrificing comfort. Protecting important relationships may require reducing time spent on less meaningful activities. Growth often demands trade-offs. Some people spend years trying to avoid these trade-offs. They want every opportunity. They want every option. They want every possibility available at all times. As a result, they struggle to commit fully to anything. Progress slows because focus becomes divided. Clarity begins when you identify what truly matters, not what others expect, not what impresses people, not what looks successful from a distance, what genuinely matters to you. Many individuals reach a point in life where they realize they have been pursuing goals they never truly wanted. They followed expectations instead of convictions. They chased approval instead of purpose. They accumulated responsibilities without considering whether those responsibilities aligned with their values. This often creates frustration. Success feels empty when it is disconnected from what matters most. That is why self-leadership requires regular reflection. You must occasionally step away from daily activity and ask deeper questions. What am I trying to build? Who am I trying to become? What deserves my attention right now? What is distracting me from meaningful progress? These questions create clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction improves decision-making. When priorities are clear, decisions become easier. Not necessarily easy, but easier. A person who prioritizes health will make different choices than someone who does not. A person who prioritizes family will structure their time differently than someone who prioritizes status. A person who prioritizes growth will respond differently to challenges than someone who prioritizes comfort. Priorities act like a filter. They help determine where energy should go. They help eliminate unnecessary confusion. They reduce the mental burden of constantly questioning every decision. Without priorities, life becomes reactive. With priorities, life becomes intentional. One common mistake people make is confusing goals with priorities. Goals are destinations. Priorities determine daily behavior. A person may have a goal of becoming financially successful. That goal alone changes nothing. The priority might be learning valuable skills. The priority might be disciplined saving. The priority might be creating consistent habits. Those daily priorities eventually produce the desired outcome. Many people focus heavily on goals while neglecting the priorities required to achieve them. They become excited about future results, but avoid present responsibilities. Leadership requires closing that gap. The future is shaped by today's priorities, not tomorrow's intentions, not next year's plans. Today's priorities. Consider how many decisions you make each day. Some are small, others carry significant consequences. The quality of those decisions often depends on whether your priorities are already established. When priorities are unclear, every decision feels complicated. You constantly debate options. You second-guess yourself. You become vulnerable to distractions. When priorities are clear, many decisions are already made. You know what deserves your attention. You know what deserves your energy. You know what deserves your commitment. This creates confidence. Confidence does not come from knowing everything. Confidence comes from knowing what matters most. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be incomplete information. There will always be unexpected developments. Waiting for perfect certainty often leads to inaction. Leaders learn to move forward based on principles rather than guarantees. Their priorities provide stability even when circumstances change. Think about a ship crossing a large ocean. Storms may appear, winds may shift, conditions may become difficult, yet the destination remains clear. The captain adjusts tactics without abandoning direction. Your priorities serve a similar purpose. They provide orientation when conditions become challenging. Another important lesson is that priorities must be protected. Identifying priorities is only the beginning. Maintaining them requires discipline. Many people know what matters, but consistently allow less important things to consume their attention. Days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years. Eventually they realize they have drifted far from what they claimed was important. This happens gradually. Rarely does someone intentionally abandon their priorities. More often they neglect them one small decision at a time. A missed commitment here, an unnecessary distraction there, a postponed responsibility repeated again and again. The accumulation of these choices creates distance from meaningful goals. Strong leaders guard their priorities carefully. They recognize that every commitment carries a cost. Before agreeing to new responsibilities, they evaluate whether those responsibilities align with their values and objectives. They understand that opportunity can sometimes become distraction. Not every good opportunity is the right opportunity. This distinction is critical. Some opportunities move you closer to your purpose. Others simply consume your attention. Wisdom involves recognizing the difference. The ability to say no becomes increasingly important as your responsibilities grow. Many people struggle with this. They fear disappointing others. They fear missing opportunities. They fear appearing selfish. Yet saying yes to everything often means saying no to what matters most. Protecting priorities sometimes requires uncomfortable decisions. It may require declining invitations. It may require setting boundaries. It may require disappointing people temporarily in order to honor larger commitments. These choices are rarely easy. But leadership is not about choosing what feels easiest. It is about choosing what serves the highest priorities. Another benefit of clear priorities is reduced stress. Much stress comes from internal conflict. You know what needs attention, yet you spend time elsewhere. You know what matters, yet your actions move in another direction. This gap creates tension. Alignment reduces that tension. When actions reflect priorities, life feels more coherent. Energy becomes focused. Effort becomes meaningful. Progress becomes visible. Even difficult work feels more rewarding because it serves a larger purpose. This does not mean every day will be enjoyable. Important priorities often require sacrifice. Meaningful goals often require patience. Growth often requires discomfort. Yet there is a significant difference between difficult work that matters and difficult work that does not. People can endure remarkable challenges when those challenges serve a purpose they believe in. Clear priorities provide that purpose. They remind you why effort is worthwhile. They remind you why discipline matters. They remind you why persistence is necessary. As leadership responsibilities increase, competing demands will always exist. People will seek your attention. Problems will require solutions. Unexpected situations will emerge. The ability to maintain focus amid these competing pressures becomes a tremendous advantage. Those who lack priorities become overwhelmed. Those who possess priorities remain grounded. They evaluate decisions through a consistent framework. They know where to direct resources. They know when to advance. They know when to pause. Most importantly, they know why they are making the choices they make. That understanding creates confidence, not arrogance, not certainty, confidence. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing your actions are aligned with your values. The steady confidence that comes from directing your life intentionally. The enduring confidence that comes from understanding what deserves your commitment and what does not. Leadership begins with leading your own attention. When your priorities are clear, your decisions become stronger. When your decisions become stronger, your actions become more consistent. When your actions become more consistent, your influence grows naturally. And every step of that process begins with a simple but powerful choice. Decide what matters most and give it the attention it deserves. Chapter_5. Eliminate self-defeating behaviors that weaken leadership growth. Leadership growth is not only about developing new strengths, it is also about removing the habits and behaviors that quietly hold you back. Many people focus their attention on what they need to add to their lives. They want more knowledge, more confidence, more skills, more opportunities, more resources. Those things are valuable. But sometimes progress does not require adding something new. Sometimes progress requires removing what is already standing in the way. A person can possess talent and still sabotage their own success. A person can have intelligence and still repeatedly make choices that limit their potential. A person can have ambition and still remain trapped by habits that undermine growth. This is why self-awareness is so important. You cannot eliminate what you refuse to recognize. Many self-defeating behaviors operate quietly. They become so familiar that people stop noticing them. Over time, these patterns begin to feel normal, even when they are damaging. One of the most common examples is procrastination. Many people assume procrastination is simply poor time management. In reality, it is often much deeper. People delay important work for many reasons. Some fear failure, some fear criticism, some fear success and the responsibilities that come with it. Others wait for motivation that never arrives. Whatever the reason, the result is usually the same. Important opportunities remain untouched. Progress slows. Confidence decreases. Stress increases. The longer a task is avoided, the heavier it often feels. A project that could have been completed in a few hours becomes a source of anxiety for weeks. A conversation that needed to happen becomes increasingly difficult. A decision that required action becomes more complicated over time. Strong leaders understand that action often reduces fear more effectively than thinking about fear. The beginning is usually the hardest part. Once movement starts, resistance often decreases. This is why disciplined action is such a powerful antidote to procrastination. Another self-defeating behavior is the constant search for perfection. At first glance, perfection may seem admirable. People often associate it with high standards and excellence. But perfectionism frequently produces the opposite effect. Instead of encouraging progress, it creates hesitation. Instead of creating excellence, it creates avoidance. Instead of supporting growth, it creates frustration. A perfectionist may spend excessive time planning while avoiding execution. They may refuse to start because conditions are not ideal. They may continuously revise work that is already good enough. They may become so focused on avoiding mistakes that they stop taking meaningful risks. Growth requires action. Action involves imperfection. Every skill develops through practice. Every achievement contains mistakes. Every successful leader has made poor decisions at some point. Perfection is not the goal. Continuous improvement is the goal. People who understand this make progress, while others remain stuck waiting for ideal circumstances. Another damaging habit is comparison. Comparison has existed throughout human history, but modern life has amplified it significantly. People constantly see carefully selected highlights from other people's lives. They see achievements. They see victories. They see milestones. They see success stories. What they rarely see are failures, setbacks, doubts, and struggles. As a result, many individuals begin measuring their behind-the-scenes reality against someone else's public success. This creates unnecessary discouragement. Comparison steals attention from personal growth. Instead of focusing on their own journey, people become distracted by someone else's progress. Leadership requires a different approach. Compete with the person you were yesterday. Measure growth against your own potential. Focus on becoming better rather than appearing better. This mindset creates healthier motivation. It directs energy toward improvement instead of insecurity. Another self-defeating behavior is making excuses. Excuses often feel protective. They help preserve pride. They help avoid discomfort. They help explain disappointing results. The problem is that excuses prevent growth. Every excuse removes responsibility. Every excuse shifts attention away from action. Every excuse reduces the likelihood of improvement. When people consistently blame external factors, they surrender their ability to influence outcomes. A leader cannot afford this mindset. Leadership requires ownership. Ownership means acknowledging reality honestly. Perhaps circumstances were difficult. Perhaps obstacles existed. Perhaps conditions were unfair. Even so, what can be learned? What can be improved? What can be done differently next time? These questions create progress. Excuses create stagnation. One of the most destructive self-defeating behaviors is allowing fear to become a permanent decision maker. Fear serves an important purpose. It alerts us to potential danger. It encourages caution when caution is necessary. But fear becomes harmful when it begins controlling every choice. Many opportunities disappear because people allow fear to make decisions on their behalf. They fear rejection. They fear failure. They fear embarrassment. They fear uncertainty. As a result, they remain within familiar boundaries. Their comfort increases temporarily, but growth decreases. The irony is that avoiding fear rarely eliminates it. In many cases, fear becomes stronger when repeatedly avoided. Confidence grows through action. The willingness to face challenges gradually weakens fear's influence. Each time you move forward despite discomfort, You teach yourself an important lesson. You become capable of handling more than you previously believed. Another common obstacle is negative self-talk. The voice inside your mind has tremendous influence over your behavior. Many people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to another person. They constantly criticize themselves. They exaggerate mistakes. They focus on weaknesses while ignoring strengths. They repeat limiting beliefs until those beliefs begin to feel true. Words matter, especially the words repeated daily. If you consistently tell yourself that you are incapable, your behavior will eventually reflect that belief. If you constantly focus on shortcomings, confidence will suffer. This does not mean ignoring weaknesses or pretending everything is perfect. It means being honest without being destructive. It means speaking to yourself with the same balance and fairness you would offer a respected friend. Strong leaders learn to challenge inaccurate beliefs. They replace assumptions with evidence. They replace unnecessary criticism with constructive evaluation. They create internal dialogue that supports growth rather than undermines it. Another behavior that weakens leadership growth is avoiding responsibility for mistakes. Nobody enjoys being wrong. Admitting mistakes can feel uncomfortable. It can challenge pride. It can expose weaknesses, yet the refusal to acknowledge mistakes creates far greater problems. People who avoid responsibility stop learning. They defend poor decisions. They repeat preventable errors. They become more concerned with protecting their image than improving their performance. True leadership requires humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is seeing yourself accurately. It is recognizing strengths without exaggeration. It is acknowledging weaknesses without denial. It is accepting correction when correction is needed. This mindset accelerates growth. Every mistake becomes valuable information. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every failure becomes an opportunity for improvement. Leaders who embrace this perspective develop faster than those who spend their lives protecting their ego. Another hidden obstacle is inconsistency. Many people work hard occasionally. Few work steadily. They become highly motivated for a short period. They make ambitious plans. They invest significant effort. Then enthusiasm fades. The habits disappear. The routines collapse. Progress stops. Growth is rarely determined by occasional intensity. It is usually determined by consistent effort. Small actions repeated over time create extraordinary results. A person who improves slightly each day often surpasses someone who relies entirely on bursts of motivation. Consistency builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence supports further action. This cycle becomes a powerful force for personal development. The truth is that leadership growth is often less about learning secret strategies and more about removing unnecessary obstacles. Many people already know what they should do. They know the habits that would improve their lives. They know the behaviors that are causing problems. The challenge is not knowledge. The challenge is execution. The challenge is confronting uncomfortable truths. The challenge is replacing destructive patterns with productive ones. Every self-defeating behavior carries a cost. Some costs are immediate. Others remain hidden for years. Missed opportunities accumulate. Potential remains unrealized. Goals remain unfinished. Relationships suffer. Confidence weakens. All because certain behaviors continue unchecked. The good news is that every behavior can be changed, not instantly, not effortlessly, but gradually through awareness and deliberate action. The moment you identify a destructive pattern, you gain the opportunity to challenge it. The moment you take responsibility for your choices, you regain control over your growth. The moment you stop sabotaging yourself, your leadership capacity begins to expand. Great leaders are not people who never struggle. They are people who refuse to remain trapped by behaviors that limit their potential. They identify weaknesses honestly. They address them courageously. They replace harmful habits with productive ones. And through that process, they become stronger, wiser, and more capable of leading both themselves and others toward meaningful success. Chapter_6. Create productive routines that reinforce personal excellence. Excellence is rarely the result of a single extraordinary effort. More often, it is the result of ordinary actions repeated consistently over long periods of time. People often admire successful leaders and assume their achievements come from exceptional talent or rare opportunities. While talent and opportunity can certainly help, they are rarely enough on their own. Behind most sustained success lies a collection of routines that support disciplined action day after day. Routines shape behavior. Behavior shapes results. Results shape reputation. This process happens whether routines are intentional or accidental. Every person already has routines. The question is whether those routines are helping or hurting their growth. Many people underestimate the power of repeated actions because the effects are not always visible immediately. One healthy meal does not transform a person's health. One workout does not dramatically change physical fitness. One productive morning does not guarantee success. The impact becomes visible through repetition. Small actions accumulate. Choices compound. Efforts build upon one another. Over time, the difference becomes significant. This is why leaders who strive for excellence focus less on isolated moments and more on consistent patterns. They understand that greatness is often hidden inside ordinary days. A productive routine removes unnecessary decision-making. This is one of its greatest advantages. Every decision requires mental energy. Throughout the day, people constantly choose how to spend their time, where to direct their attention, and how to respond to various situations. Without structure, these decisions can become exhausting. People drift toward convenience. They become distracted. They postpone important work. They waste energy deciding when action should occur, instead of simply acting. A routine simplifies this process. Certain actions become automatic, not because they are effortless, but because they are expected. The decision has already been made. A person who exercises at a specific time each day spends less energy debating whether they should exercise. A person who regularly dedicates time to learning spends less energy deciding whether growth is important. A person who consistently plans their day enters each morning with greater clarity. The routine creates momentum. Momentum makes discipline easier to maintain. This does not mean every day must be rigidly controlled. Life contains unexpected events. Responsibilities change. Situations evolve. Flexibility remains important. However, flexibility works best when built upon a foundation of consistent habits. Without that foundation, flexibility often becomes an excuse for inconsistency. One of the most important routines any leader can develop is beginning the day with intention. Many people start their mornings in a reactive state. They immediately check messages. They immediately respond to requests. They immediately expose themselves to distractions. As a result, their attention becomes scattered before the day has truly begun. The first moments of the day often influence everything that follows. A rushed beginning frequently produces a rushed mindset. A distracted beginning frequently produces a distracted day. Leaders who value excellence understand the importance of creating a strong start. They take time to establish focus. They review priorities. They consider responsibilities. They prepare mentally before entering the demands of the day. This simple practice creates greater control over attention and energy. Another valuable routine involves protecting time for meaningful work. Modern life is filled with interruptions. Notifications compete for attention. Conversations interrupt concentration. Digital distractions constantly invite engagement. Without intentional boundaries, focus becomes fragmented. Many people spend entire days being busy without accomplishing their most important tasks. Productive leaders approach this differently. They identify work that matters most. Then they create dedicated periods where that work receives full attention. During these periods, they minimize distractions. They protect concentration. They invest energy where it creates the greatest value. This habit produces results far beyond what constant multitasking can achieve. Excellence requires depth. Depth requires focus. Focus requires intentional routines. Another routine that supports personal excellence is continuous learning. Leadership growth never truly ends. Circumstances change, industries evolve, challenges become more complex. The person who stops learning eventually stops growing. Unfortunately, many people view learning as something that ends when formal education ends. They stop reading, they stop studying, they stop seeking new perspectives. Over time, their thinking becomes stagnant. Effective leaders remain curious. They continue developing knowledge. They ask questions. They seek understanding. They expose themselves to ideas that challenge assumptions. Learning becomes a regular part of life rather than an occasional activity. Even a small amount of daily learning can produce remarkable results over time. Knowledge accumulates, understanding deepens, perspective expands. These benefits strengthen decision-making and leadership capacity. Another powerful routine involves maintaining physical well-being. Leadership is often discussed as a mental activity, but physical condition significantly affects performance. Energy influences focus. Health influences productivity. Rest influences judgment. A person who consistently neglects physical well-being often experiences reduced effectiveness in other areas of life. Many leaders attempt to push through exhaustion repeatedly. They sacrifice sleep. They ignore recovery. They neglect exercise. Eventually, performance suffers. The body and mind are deeply connected. Taking care of one supports the other. This does not require perfection. It requires consistency, regular movement, adequate rest, reasonable nutrition. These habits create a stronger foundation for every other responsibility. Personal excellence is difficult to sustain when physical resources are constantly depleted. Reflection is another routine that separates intentional leaders from reactive individuals. Many people move from one activity to the next without pausing to evaluate their progress. Days pass quickly, weeks disappear, months pass unnoticed. Without reflection, valuable lessons are often missed. Reflection creates awareness. Awareness creates improvement. A leader who regularly reviews experiences gains insights that others overlook. They identify strengths. They recognize weaknesses. They notice patterns. They discover opportunities for growth. This habit transforms experience into wisdom. Simply living through events is not enough. Learning from events is what creates development. Another essential routine is honoring commitments consistently. Trust is built through reliability. People pay attention to whether words and actions align. When commitments are repeatedly honored, credibility grows. When commitments are repeatedly broken, credibility weakens. This principle applies both internally and externally. Others notice your reliability. You notice it as well. Each promise you keep strengthens self-respect. Each promise you abandon weakens confidence. This is why productive routines should include commitments that are realistic and sustainable. Many people fail because they create routines that are too ambitious. They attempt dramatic change overnight. The plan becomes overwhelming. Consistency disappears. Eventually, they abandon the effort entirely. Excellence is not created through extreme bursts of effort. It is created through sustainable consistency. Small habits maintained over time often outperform large efforts that cannot be sustained. A simple routine followed faithfully can be more powerful than a complicated system that collapses after a few weeks. Another overlooked routine is protecting your environment. The people around you influence your thinking. The conversations you engage in influence your mindset. The information you consume influences your perspective. Excellence becomes easier when your environment supports your goals. Growth becomes harder when your environment constantly encourages distraction or negativity. Leaders pay attention to these influences. They choose carefully. They recognize that success is not only about willpower, it is also about creating conditions that support positive behavior. An environment aligned with your priorities strengthens consistency. As routines become established, something important begins to happen. Certain behaviors require less effort. Discipline remains important, but resistance decreases. Actions become part of identity. A person no longer exercises merely because they should. They exercise because it is part of who they are. A person no longer learns simply because growth is useful. They learn because curiosity has become part of their character. The routine becomes integrated into daily life. This transformation is powerful because identity often sustains behavior more effectively than motivation alone. People may lose motivation temporarily. They may encounter difficult seasons. They may experience setbacks. Strong routines provide stability during these periods. They create structure when emotions fluctuate. They maintain momentum when enthusiasm decreases. This is why productive routines are such valuable leadership tools. They reduce reliance on feelings. They increase consistency. They support long-term excellence. The most respected leaders are rarely those who perform brilliantly once. They are the people who perform reliably over time. Their success is not built upon occasional effort. It is built upon disciplined routines practiced repeatedly. Every productive habit strengthens character. Every intentional routine reinforces standards. Every consistent action contributes to excellence. And over the course of months and years, those routines quietly shape the person you become. Personal excellence is not achieved in a single moment. It is built daily through the routines you choose to follow when nobody is watching. Chapter_7. Practice honest reflection to improve character daily. Growth becomes difficult when a person refuses to examine themselves honestly. Many people spend a significant portion of their lives evaluating the actions of others. They notice weaknesses in coworkers. They identify flaws in leaders. They observe mistakes made by friends and family members. They become skilled at recognizing what others should improve. Yet genuine leadership begins when that same level of attention is directed inward. The ability to reflect honestly is one of the most powerful tools for personal development. Without reflection, mistakes often repeat themselves. Habits remain unchanged. Weaknesses stay hidden. Years can pass without meaningful growth because lessons are never fully learned. Reflection creates awareness. Awareness creates understanding. Understanding creates change. This process forms the foundation of character development. Character is not built accidentally. It develops through repeated choices, thoughtful evaluation, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Many people avoid reflection because it can be uncomfortable. Honest self-examination sometimes reveals behaviors that do not align with personal values. It exposes inconsistencies. It highlights areas where improvement is needed. The natural response is often avoidance. People distract themselves. They stay busy. They focus on external problems. They seek entertainment whenever silence appears. Anything that prevents them from sitting alone with their thoughts. The problem is that avoidance delays growth. What remains unexamined often remains unchanged. Strong leaders understand this reality. They do not fear honest reflection because they recognize its value. They understand that temporary discomfort can lead to long-term improvement. Every day provides opportunities to learn. Some lessons come from success. Others come from failure. Some emerge through relationships. Others emerge through challenges. The lesson itself is not enough. Growth occurs when the lesson is recognized and applied. Reflection helps make that possible. Consider how many experiences occur during a typical day. Conversations happen, decisions are made, emotions appear, opportunities arise, problems demand attention. Most people move quickly from one event to the next without pausing to consider what they can learn from those experiences. Days become a blur of activity. Important insights disappear unnoticed. Reflection slows the process down. It creates space for understanding. At the end of a day, a leader might ask simple but meaningful questions. Did I act according to my values today? Did I treat people with respect? Did I respond wisely during moments of pressure? Did I honor my commitments? What could I have done better? These questions are not designed to create guilt. They are designed to create awareness. There is an important difference. Healthy reflection focuses on improvement rather than self-punishment. Some people confuse reflection with harsh self-criticism. They examine every mistake and attack themselves relentlessly. They magnify shortcomings. They ignore strengths. They create an internal environment filled with judgment and negativity. This approach rarely produces growth. It often creates discouragement. Honest reflection requires balance. It involves recognizing successes without arrogance. It involves acknowledging mistakes without self-destruction. It involves seeing reality clearly, neither better nor worse than reality, simply accurate. Accuracy is essential because improvement depends on truth. If weaknesses are ignored, they cannot be strengthened. If strengths are denied, they cannot be developed fully. A person who sees themselves clearly possesses a tremendous advantage. They know where growth is needed. They know where opportunities exist. They understand both their capabilities and their limitations. This awareness improves decision-making. It strengthens relationships. It supports leadership development. Another benefit of reflection is emotional maturity. Many emotional reactions become easier to understand when examined thoughtfully. During a difficult conversation, perhaps frustration appeared unexpectedly. A challenge at work may have created anxiety. A disagreement may have triggered defensiveness. In the moment, these emotions can feel overwhelming. Reflection allows you to examine them later with greater clarity. Why did I react that way? What belief influenced that response? What fear was operating beneath the surface? What can I learn from this experience? Questions like these reveal valuable information. Often the issue extends beyond the event itself. A person's reaction may be connected to past experiences, insecurities, assumptions, or habits they have never fully examined. Reflection brings these patterns into awareness. Once awareness exists, change becomes possible. Character growth often begins with recognizing patterns. Every person has recurring tendencies. Some are helpful, some are harmful. Certain individuals become impatient when progress is slow. Others avoid difficult conversations. Some struggle with pride. Others struggle with self-doubt. Many of these patterns operate automatically. People repeat them so frequently that they stop noticing them. Reflection interrupts this cycle. It shines light on behaviors that would otherwise remain hidden. The moment a pattern becomes visible, it can be challenged. The moment it is challenged, growth can begin. This process requires honesty, not partial honesty, not selective honesty, real honesty. It requires the courage to admit when your actions were below your standards. It requires the humility to acknowledge mistakes. It requires the maturity to accept responsibility without making excuses. These qualities are essential for leadership. People naturally trust leaders who demonstrate self-awareness. Why? Because self-aware individuals are more likely to learn from mistakes. They are more likely to adapt. They are more likely to accept feedback. They are less likely to be controlled by ego. Ego is one of the greatest obstacles to reflection. The ego wants to appear correct. It wants validation. It wants protection from criticism. As a result, it often resists uncomfortable truths. A person driven by ego may explain away every mistake. They may blame circumstances. They may blame other people. They may defend behaviors that clearly need improvement. This protects pride temporarily, but prevents growth. Reflection requires setting ego aside. It requires asking not whether criticism feels comfortable, but whether it contains useful information. This mindset accelerates development. Every piece of feedback becomes an opportunity. Every challenge becomes a lesson. Every mistake becomes a teacher. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Daily reflection supports this progress because it prevents small problems from becoming large ones. A minor habit left unchecked can eventually become a serious weakness. A small attitude problem can gradually damage relationships. A neglected responsibility can create significant consequences. Reflection catches these issues early. It provides regular opportunities for correction. Think of it as routine maintenance for character. Just as physical health benefits from consistent care, character benefits from consistent examination. Small adjustments made regularly are often more effective than major changes attempted occasionally. Another valuable aspect of reflection is gratitude. People often focus exclusively on what remains unfinished. They notice goals not yet achieved. They focus on weaknesses not yet corrected. They concentrate on challenges still unresolved. While improvement is important, gratitude provides perspective. Reflection should include recognition of progress. How have you grown? What challenges have you overcome? What lessons have strengthened you? What opportunities have been provided? Gratitude does not eliminate ambition. It creates balance. It reminds you that growth is already occurring. This awareness strengthens motivation and resilience. Over time, honest reflection develops wisdom. Knowledge can be gained through study. Wisdom often emerges through thoughtful examination of experience. Two people can live through the same event and learn completely different lessons. The difference is often reflection. One person moves on quickly. The other pauses, thinks deeply, and extracts meaning from the experience. That meaning becomes wisdom. Wisdom improves judgment. Judgment improves decisions. Decisions shape character. Character shapes leadership. The process is deeply connected. Leaders who reflect regularly become more intentional. They understand themselves more clearly. They recognize their strengths. They acknowledge their weaknesses. They learn from experience instead of merely accumulating it. Most importantly, they continue improving long after others stop growing. Personal development is not a destination. It is an ongoing process. Every day presents opportunities to become more disciplined, more thoughtful, more patient, more courageous, and more effective. Reflection ensures those opportunities are not wasted. The person who practices honest reflection develops an increasingly accurate understanding of who they are and who they are becoming. That understanding becomes a powerful guide. It keeps growth aligned with values. It keeps leadership grounded in character. It prevents complacency. It encourages continuous improvement. And over the course of years, those small moments of daily reflection create profound transformation. Because the person who is willing to examine themselves honestly each day gains something incredibly valuable, the ability to become better than they were yesterday. And that is where lasting leadership truly begins. Chapter_8. Communicate with purpose by aligning words and actions. Communication is one of the most visible parts of leadership, yet many people misunderstand what makes communication effective. They focus on speaking skills. They focus on presentation techniques. They focus on persuasive language. While these things can be useful, they are not the foundation of meaningful communication. The foundation is trust. Without trust, even the most impressive words lose their power. With trust, simple words can inspire action, strengthen relationships, and create lasting influence. Trust grows when words and actions consistently align. People pay far more attention to what you do than what you say. A leader may talk about discipline, but if they consistently avoid responsibility, people notice. A leader may encourage accountability, but if they refuse to admit mistakes, people notice. A leader may speak about commitment, but if they repeatedly fail to honor promises, people notice. Actions communicate continuously. In many situations, they communicate more loudly than words ever can. This is why leadership communication begins long before a conversation takes place. It begins with character. It begins with integrity. It begins with living according to the standards you encourage others to follow. Many people underestimate the importance of consistency. They assume influence comes primarily from authority or expertise. While those qualities can help, consistency often creates deeper trust. People trust individuals whose behavior remains aligned with their values. They trust people who mean what they say. They trust people whose actions confirm their words repeatedly over time. This trust cannot be manufactured. It must be earned. Every commitment kept strengthens it. Every promise broken weakens it. Communication becomes powerful when people believe your words because they have seen evidence behind them. One of the most common communication mistakes is speaking without intention. Many conversations happen automatically. People react without thinking. They fill silence unnecessarily. They speak emotionally rather than thoughtfully. As a result, their words create confusion instead of clarity. Purposeful communication begins with awareness. Before speaking, effective leaders often consider what they want to accomplish. Do they want to inform? Do they want to encourage? Do they want to solve a problem? Do they want to understand another person's perspective? Clarity of purpose improves clarity of communication. When you know your objective, your words become more focused. You become less likely to speak carelessly. You become more likely to communicate in a way that serves the situation. Another important aspect of communication is listening. Many people view communication primarily as speaking. In reality, listening is often the more valuable skill. People naturally want to feel understood. They want their concerns acknowledged. They want their perspectives considered. A leader who listens carefully gains valuable information while simultaneously building trust. Unfortunately, many individuals listen only long enough to prepare their response. They are not truly paying attention. Their focus remains on what they want to say next. As a result, important details are missed. Misunderstandings increase. Relationships suffer. Purposeful communication requires genuine attention. It requires listening with the intention to understand rather than simply reply. This approach changes conversations significantly. People become more open. Conflicts become easier to resolve. Trust becomes easier to build. The quality of relationships improves. Listening also demonstrates humility. It communicates that other perspectives matter. It communicates that learning is more important than appearing right. This mindset strengthens leadership because no individual possesses all the answers. Every person can learn from others. Effective communication creates opportunities for that learning to occur. Another critical element of purposeful communication is honesty. Honesty may seem obvious, yet many people struggle with it, not necessarily through direct lies, but through avoidance. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid uncomfortable truths. They withhold important information to protect themselves from discomfort. While avoidance may create temporary relief, it often creates larger problems later. Trust depends on honesty. Relationships depend on honesty. Leadership depends on honesty. This does not mean communicating harshly or carelessly. Honesty and kindness can exist together. In fact, the most effective leaders often combine both qualities They communicate truthfully while maintaining respect. They address problems directly without attacking people personally. They provide feedback constructively. They remain sincere without becoming destructive. This balance requires emotional maturity. It requires courage. It requires discipline. Yet it strengthens credibility tremendously. People may not always enjoy hearing difficult truths, but they often respect those who communicate them with integrity. Purposeful communication also requires responsibility for the impact of your words. Many people focus entirely on intention. They say something harmful and immediately defend themselves by explaining what they meant. Intentions matter. However, impact matters too. A responsible communicator pays attention to both. If a message is consistently misunderstood, improvement may be needed. If words repeatedly create confusion, greater clarity may be required. If communication damages trust, reflection becomes necessary. Leadership involves accepting responsibility not only for what is said, but also for how effectively it is communicated. This mindset encourages growth. It shifts attention away from blame and toward improvement. Another challenge many leaders face is communicating during difficult circumstances. Pressure changes conversations. Emotions become stronger. Tension increases. Misunderstandings become more likely. These moments reveal communication habits clearly. Some individuals become defensive, others become aggressive, some withdraw completely, others react impulsively. Purposeful communicators remain intentional even during stress. They slow down, they listen carefully, they choose words thoughtfully, they focus on solutions rather than emotional reactions. This ability becomes especially valuable during conflict. Conflict itself is not necessarily harmful. Many important improvements emerge through disagreement. Problems arise when communication breaks down during those disagreements. When people stop listening, conflict intensifies. When assumptions replace understanding, conflict intensifies. When ego becomes more important than solutions, conflict intensifies. Strong leaders recognize this pattern. They work to maintain productive dialogue even when opinions differ. They seek understanding before seeking agreement. They ask questions. They remain curious. They focus on solving problems rather than winning arguments. This approach often transforms difficult conversations into opportunities for growth. Another aspect of communication that deserves attention is reliability. People notice whether your words can be trusted. When you say you will do something, do you follow through? When you make a commitment, do you honor it? When you establish expectations, do your actions support those expectations? Reliability is a form of communication. Every fulfilled commitment sends a message. Every broken commitment sends a message as well. Over time, these messages shape your reputation. Reputation influences leadership more than many people realize. People decide whether to trust your guidance based largely on past experience. They evaluate whether your actions support your words. This is why integrity remains central to effective communication. Integrity creates alignment. Alignment creates trust. Trust creates influence. Without alignment, communication eventually loses credibility. No amount of persuasive language can permanently compensate for inconsistent behavior. Eventually, people notice the gap. Eventually, confidence decreases. Eventually, influence weakens. Leaders who communicate effectively understand that every action contributes to the message they send. Their behavior reinforces their words. Their decisions reinforce their values. Their habits reinforce their standards. As a result, communication becomes more authentic. People sense authenticity. They recognize when someone genuinely believes what they are saying. They recognize when actions support the message. This authenticity creates connection. Connection strengthens influence. Another valuable communication habit is choosing clarity over complexity. Many people attempt to sound impressive. They use complicated language. They provide excessive explanations. They overwhelm others with unnecessary details. Purposeful communication seeks understanding. The goal is not to impress people. The goal is to communicate effectively. Simple messages are often more powerful because they are easier to remember and apply. Clear communication reduces confusion. It increases alignment. It improves execution. Strong leaders understand this principle. They communicate in ways that people can understand and act upon. Ultimately, communication is not merely about transferring information. It is about creating understanding. It is about building trust. It is about strengthening relationships. It is about aligning people around shared goals and values. Words play an important role in this process. Actions play an equally important role. When words and actions support one another, communication gains tremendous power. People believe what they hear because they have seen evidence of it. Trust grows naturally. Influence becomes authentic. Leadership becomes stronger. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to reinforce integrity. Every commitment becomes an opportunity to build credibility. Every action becomes an opportunity to communicate values without speaking at all. The leaders who create the greatest impact are rarely those who speak the most. They are often the people whose actions consistently give meaning to their words. And that alignment between what is said and what is done becomes one of the strongest foundations of lasting leadership.